So what we have here is our start scene. I'm just going to talk about the scene and show you what's in it. I have my character, if I can get to him, and he has a mixer on him, and in the mixer are 3 animation sequences, and we can see the animation here. And the moment he's walking forward, he's got the walk confident, there's a run, and there's a walk stumble, and I've clipped all these until they have just the parts I want, plus a frame or so at either end. Now here's the important part. Right now these are moving forward. Ideally we want loops. Now, of course, if I was doing this correctly, I'd probably go ahead and reanimate these to be nice, perfect loops, but these are good enough. Now I found roughly where a loop starts and ends. Here is kind of 0 or 1 to 46. But then moving forward, the easiest way to make character not move forward is just right mouse button in the mixer, go to clip properties, and in this case I'm going to find the upper body kidney local position Z, and now you'll see he's now walking, doing the moonwalk. We're going to do the same to the other 2 clips in here. Just go to the clip, turn off the Z position from each of these. And now those 3 clips should no longer be moving forward. We can scrub through and see everything is happening with no Z-axis. So the animation is now ready, and that's the first thing I want to do in this scene. The next is actually make the particles emit. So we're going to do this from scratch. We're going to create a primitive point cloud empty. We can give this a name. I'll call it cloud there we are. So, and with the selected we're going to add a simulated ice tree. We're going to get the emit from position node, not emit from object, emit from position, and we're going to link this into our ice tree. Now we want to pick the positions. The positions are going to be from this grid here. So we get that grid. We can hit F3 and drag it in. Now we don't want the grid geometry, we want the grid positions. So we'll just double click and explore the grid. So it'll be grid, polygon mesh, point positions. Point position. And we'll link this into the emit position. Now if I hit play now, we get a ton of particles coming from each point. Now it doesn't look like many right now, but if I zoomed in to one of those points, you'd actually see we're getting several particles emitted from each point of that grid. So want to make sure we're not getting multiple points and they're going in the right direction. So we're going to go here and say I want to only emit 1 point, and I want 1 point as total number of particles. Just going to turn these to boxes for a moment so it's nice and clear, and set the size to 1, and you'll get a better idea of what's going on. So now we have 1 box for every vertex, and they're moving very slowly in a direction but not the direction we want. So we're going to set the speed to 8. I know this from working with the animation. And we're going to set the direction to the, I believe it's Z direction or X direction. We can just look at the corner here and it's going to be the Z direction. So we set the direction to 1 in the Z. Now if we hit play again, nothing's happening. The reason nothing's happening right now is because we're not simulating the particles. So let's add a simulate. We won't need this in a second because simulate particle is a part of the state compounds, but for the moment we want to see those move, so we're just going to hit play again, and now we can see our particles move, but you may notice something weird happening. They're not moving straight in the z-axis, they're actually moving up and down slightly. And that's because there's a randomize turned on by default in the emit from position. We want to set that to 0. And now the particles will emit directly along in the z-axis. Now we don't have to set this to any value because we're going to control the speed later on, but I just wanted to have those emitted for the moment to check everything works. Now, last thing we're going to do on this video here is make sure it's not emitting boxes, but it's actually emitting our character. To do that, we're actually going to use the set instance geometry. I know we've used instance geometry before. This one I want to use set because it has a few more options I can work with. And we're going to execute on emit, and we're going to pick our instant geometry, and this is going to be, if we go to Explorer, it's going to be our mocap rig. Now we can pick the entire rig, or we can just pick just the man. Even though we haven't got the rig selected, it's going to know its geometry that's been deformed. So when we hit play, we're going to see our walking guys. And by setting it to 8, he's pretty much walking without too much sliding. Now it goes to the next sequence, and then it goes to the next sequence. So we're going to want to control the sequences later on, but for the moment we have what we want. There's different options as well here, whether you use input frame, current frame, or do not change. This just affects how it's emitted. So if you use current frame, everything's just sliding forward. If you use do not change, so there's different options here, but we're just going to use the use input frame. You can clamp if you're using different objects, if you're using a group. In this case we're just using one character, so that's fine. We could have several characters if we wanted for this crowd, but we're just going to use a single character at this time. So we're set here, so we're going to go ahead to the next section.